Recording.
Meeting is called to order. Start by observing a moment of silence. Next, the Pledge of Allegiance.
I believe it is to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Ray.
Metzger.
Here.
Campbell.
Here.
Kavasa. Kinney.
Here.
Wortman.
Here.
Brannett.
Here.
Hufall.
Here.
Stendor.
Here.
Jennings. Berlin.
Here.
Corpola.
Here.
Micka.
Here.
Vitek.
Here.
Huber.
Here.
Hennanen.
Here.
Wiener.
Here.
Shooty. Here. Murdig.
Here.
Negro.
Here.
McKenzie.
Here.
Quebec. 19 present, 2 absent.
Need a motion to adopt the agenda. Before we do that, we're going to modify the agenda. D4 will come after the closed session. A motion to approve the agenda as modified.
I make a motion, we approve it as presented.
Motion by Kathy Shooty. Have a second? I'll second. Seconded by Marty Vitek. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Thank you. Public comments. Public comments. Hearing none, we'll go on to C. To D, a regular agenda, discussion items, approval of the July 20th, 2021 county board minutes. Need a motion to approve if there's no corrections or additions. Bill?
I will so move.
No mention or moved. Richard Huber seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. We'll go to 1B. Liz Zock, County Health Officer, can make a presentation on COVID-19. Okay, here.
Actually, you know what? You may want to come down here just because of the microphone and the mask. I don't think that's pretty very well. Just take a chair and use the mouse right there.
All right, so. So I just wanted to give a quick update as far as the COVID-19 status for Ashland County. We were doing very well for a period of time. We actually went from June 24th through July 20th with having no cases at all. Since July 20th, we've actually had 19 new either confirmed or probable cases, so 19 new positive cases of COVID-19. Because of that, per the CDC, that actually puts us into, now my map is crooked. We would be considered per the CDC in an area of substantial community spread. This one. DHS actually has us considered per capita, we would be in a high case activity level per the DHS website. And this is reflected as well with our positivity rate. So we have a weekly case update for positivity rate. We were, because of the no cases from June 24th through July 20th, our positivity rate was actually at 0 for several weeks. And as of last Wednesday, we were at 2.2% positivity, which was a significant jump. We are still substantially lower than the overall state positivity rate yesterday, which came in at 6.9%. So compared to some areas of the state, we are still doing much better than where some other areas are at. And then as far as vaccination rates, we are currently at 57.2% of our population for Ashland County has received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccination series. There are still quite a few individuals that are working to complete the series. So the fully completed or fully vaccinated individuals, that number is a little bit under, I believe it's still in the 50. I can switch this over. So 54% have completed the entire series at this point in time. We do have several vaccination clinics planned. We actually have a walk-in vaccination clinic starting this afternoon, going until 6, and then another one tomorrow and another one on Thursday. We'll be providing the Pfizer vaccination, so anybody age 12 and up would be eligible to receive it. We've been working with the schools to try and get the information out to parents so we can get more of the children vaccinated. Our younger populations are currently the ones that are not as vaccinated. So trying to increase those numbers prior to going back to school. So, but based on the community spread that we have at this point in time, with the CDC indicating that we have substantial transmission and DHS indicating that we have high case activity, we would be providing the recommendation that was the new recommendation for mask use provided by the CDC on the 27th of July for all individuals in indoor spaces to be wearing masks regardless of vaccination status at this point in time. Anybody have any questions?
On these new cases that were reported, had they been vaccinated previously?
Some of them, yes, some of them, no.
Do you have like a percentage, or is there like 1 or 2 or 10 or?
From what I can recall off the top of my head, I'd say about 5 to 7 of them were previously vaccinated. So of the individuals, and that's out of the 19 cases that we've had in the last little bit, like I said, 5 to 7 have been vaccinated. Those individuals have been very, very mildly symptomatic, whereas other people, in one instance, other individuals in the same household who were not vaccinated were substantially ill, not requiring hospitalization, but feeling very, very crappy. The vaccinated individuals were very mildly symptomatic.
First I want to thank the health department for all the help last year, especially through the worst of it, but schools are going to be opening up in a few weeks. And so I'm hoping the county will take a stand from the health department side and help the schools. We're going to be facing a little bit of a pressure in the county as to mandating masks again. And so whatever help the CDC and the health department can give to county residents, it may alleviate some of those concerns, because, we already know there are people who don't want to wear masks. But if we're going in the wrong direction here again, where positivity rates going up, maybe it would be a
Yep. And we haven't been communicating with all of the schools throughout the county. So with any new update or new recommendation guidance provided, we're forwarding all of that to the schools. They're probably receiving it in triplicate from me at this point in time. So.
Thank you.
Liz, what is your recommendation as far as the mask goes?
I would recommend to go with the CDC guidance at this point in time and the use of masks in indoor spaces, regardless of vaccination status at this point.
In other words, we should have one here.
Probably be a good idea, yeah.
Morning, Liz.
Okay.
I heard on TV yesterday that if the wearing of the masks probably won't take as long as to wear them as it did in the past. That if more people get vaccinated, we won't have to wear it so long.
Right, it could be a very fluid situation at this point in time. It really depends on activity level. You know, a month ago, we were at 0 cases and then we had this influx. So, you know, we're hopeful that if everybody essentially does what they're supposed to do, if you know, the affected individuals quarantine, we're able to contact all of their close contacts and they quarantine, that hopefully it won't spread. So then, you know, then that would, the case activity level would go back down again. So it could be a very fluid situation for a little while as far as, you know, precautions, additional interventions, the use of masks and things like that.
Thank you.
Liz, good question. As far as the mask use, I mean, there's a lot of discussion going on about what masks are effective and what aren't, and what they're effective against and what they're for. What recommendation are they giving for masks? My understanding was they were saying that 95 was what would be needed in order for this to happen. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time with the cloth masks and as far as the maintaining the hygiene of them and all that stuff. So I guess if we're gonna make a recommendation, we should be clear on what type of mask and how the mask should be worn, whether it's above the nose, you know, is it allowed? I mean, you see people wearing them below their nose. You know, so at some point, if we're gonna make a recommendation, I hope we clarify something.
I don't know that the CDC specifically stated which type of mask. Generally, the information that they provide is just for a mask. The guidance and the recommendation is for a mask to fully cover the nose and mouth. If it's a cloth mask, I believe it's at least 2 layers of fabric. N95 mask is the most effective mask that there is, but for community use, if you're able to maintain social distancing, if you're not, you know, if you're not at a party or some sort of gathering where everybody's, you know, packed in like sardines and you're able to maintain some sort of social distancing, even a cloth mask is going to help to reduce the number of particulates that are being put out into the air. So that is at least going to provide some benefit as well. So I don't have a specific, you should use this mask versus this mask. Any mask when worn properly is going to provide some benefit for your community members.
I understand what you're saying, and I stand by what I say. I think we need to be very clear if we make recommendations about mask wear, what should and shouldn't be allowed.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're wasting our time.
Any more questions for Liz?
This is Liz Franick.
Go ahead, Liz.
I understand the importance of masks in public, but I work in retail at Walgreens, and I would love us to stress not only the mask, or if not mask, please remain 6 feet away from each other. I mean, I've got masked and unmasked individuals hanging out almost neck and neck with each other. And, you know, a customer kind of giving them the evil eye, like, please move, and a customer refusing to move. So I would like us to stress the social distancing, you know, because, I mean, it just, there's other things besides COVID going around right now too. So I'd like to stress the social distancing. And if area businesses could stress that to individuals. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Any more comments? Any more questions for Liz? Hearing none, thank you, Liz, for your
Yep.
report. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for coming in.
No problem.
Okay, we'll go to D2 on the agenda, approval of emergency funding Tri-County Corridor. And Pat Delst is here, the general manager.
We put her on the floor.
I second that Laura Negro.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for seeing me. I know it's a real tight, appreciate you even putting that agenda with as tight of a budget is. I understand what you're all going through. I just want to give you a little background. On the Tri-County Corridor Commission, we, many of you may know that we were embezzled to the tune of over $203,000. We were able to borrow $60,000 from Ashland County, which we have paid back to pay our bills and continue operating, but we are still in some bad position. Partially because we have a little bit of money in our account, but not much. And our grants come in to maintain the trail. Say, for example, our summer maintenance, trail maintenance is just under $50,000. They give us 24 or half of it up front. Let's just say it's 50,000. They give us 25,000 up front to maintain our trail. The grant runs from July 1st to June 30th. When we spend all the 24,000, we have to pay for anything up until the other 25,000 out of our pocket to maintain the trail. And then when the grant expires, we submit for reimbursement. And then we get that money back. Our issue is we don't have, isn't that we don't have the money to operate, it's we don't have the money to spend to go past what the advance is, so that we can continue to maintain the trail. We're continuously turning grant money back because we can't get it, because we can't access it. And we're getting complaints. I get many complaints, especially in the summertime, about the condition of the trail. I had one woman call me, said we were on it, went about a mile, so it was really rough. We're planning coming up on vacation. When is it going to get graded? And my answer to them is when I get some more money in, then I'll get it graded. They said that makes their decision whether it can come up. So I'm getting calls. It's affecting tourism, which affects our dollars here. We have taken many precautions to prevent any more embezzling from us. We have gone to, when the financial reports go out before any of our meetings, the treasurer will access the actual checking account, not look at statements that were provided, because in the past, the statements that were provided to us were false statements. They were doctored statements. So that's why this happened. He will actually go in and look at the actual account and verify that the financial statements balance with what's actually in the account. We also, last night at our meeting, went to two signatures on all checks. We had not done that right away because of the fact we're spread over 3 counties and it's hard to get signatures. But Bayfield County looked at the same proposal and had that recommendation. They also had the recommendation that our board had to approve all bills being paid. So we meet every 2 months. So now all the bills will be presented at the meetings every 2 months, approved and signed at that meeting. But the checking account will still be verified by our treasurer. And then all the board of directors on the Tri-County Commission have access to the checking account online to look at it, to view its account. So I can assure you we are doing, we've put in effect all measures that we can think of at this point to prevent any future embezzlement. And that was one of the conditions that Bayfield County put. And I will let you know that last week they did approve to give us this one-time emergency funding of $10,000. This money is just going to sit in our account, not go anywhere. It's just going to be used for the excess from what they front us to the end of our grant. So on the summer grant, it would be $25,000. It would be used once a year to go up to that $49,000 mark so that we access all the grant funds and get the maximum amount of work done on the trail to keep the trail the best it can be. We also get grants for winter time for the grooming. Again, they front us half, so we will spend the other half to continue grooming. We also get a winter grant for trail maintenance and grooming we get one from the snowmobile side, one from the ATV side. So we'll be able to access the extra monies in them instead of sending them, just leaving them untapped and just returned back to the state. So because a lot of work needs to be done on that trail. There's bridges that are needed repair. There's a lot of gravel that needs to be put in, especially the Ashland end here. It's really short on gravel. One other thing that it'll be used for is I applied for 2 grants. One to fix a washout in the by Carrabba Road, and that's $20,000 to fix it. They're going to give me $10,000 up front. I got to come up with the other $10,000 to do it. Once it's done, they reimburse me for they reimburse us for that up to the $20,000. I have another one by Smith Road in Douglas County. That one's $80,000. I don't have the $40,000. They're going to give me $40,000. I've got to get all the work done and pay the other $40,000. I don't have it to get that done. And that trail continuously is sinking about a third of the trail due to the culvert washed out. And the culvert is so deep, down deep, that's why the expense is so high. There's bridges, Fish Creek bridges and that need replacing. I need to apply for grants for that. Again, they'll pay half up front, but I got to come up with the other half. So that's just kind of a rundown of what we're looking at. The money isn't there for us to operate the trail. It's there for us to access the extra grant funds that we can get to maintain the trail. And I will let you know that I am on the Tri-County Corridor Commission as a representative for Ashland County, as with Ron Stinder and Matt McKenzie. So at this point, any questions anyone has?
What's the status of the embezzlement case, and what's the chances of being able to recover any of that?
The person has never had anything. Never in my knowing him, he's never held a full-time job. The DA in Bayfield County is asking for 1 year in jail, which transitions to 9 months of good behavior, which I'm appalled at. And I am going to speak at a sentencing hearing on August 18th and ask the judge to throw that out and sentence him more. Because there's other cases around this area where people have embezzled and received more time. So I've been actively following cases and showing up at the hearings. And like I said, it's not what I would like to see.
Does he have to pay any of this money back?
That's one of the conditions, is that after he has to maintain full-time employment and start paying back. He's had a heart attack, and knowing him, he will get a doctor's note that says he can't maintain full-time employment. Knowing the guy, and he does a lot of work out of his home for cash, so he has been very uncooperative. We have civilly gone after him to try and recover the property he has purchased with it, but he has been very uncooperative and coming forward with that property. So we have 2 things ongoing there with that. We have recovered 1 pickup truck at this point, but there's still a lot more out there. Yes.
How did this work out in the previous years?
In previous, we had money in the account previous years, and it's like I said, all of it disappeared. So we can build that account up. I have people doing volunteer work and donations, which will help build that account back up so we have the funds. But in previous years, yes, we used to have for numerous grants out there. We'd have numerous grants. So you had 3 years to do them. You get 2 grants for $100,000. You get $50,000. Well, you do one year, get reimbursed for it and do another one. So you're not doing them all at one time, but like I said, he drained our account down to, when I checked the account and found out it was at just over between $7,000 and $8,000 left in our account. So
Every year it kind of runs the same then?
yes, we'll start, we get a yearly amount from each county, 6,000 from each county for our administrative expenses, which are not grant claimable. That's what we used to hire the director and the trail coordinator with. We have not had a director or a trail coordinator since then. Since that happened, the board has elected that the treasurer and the chair will do that position. We've done it volunteer until this year. And with the 6,000 that we were getting from each county, we were paying back the loan we have with Ashland County with interest. We paid that back, plus we got our money from FEMA that was out there from some storm damage. So we were able to recover some of our money in some of the work that was done in previous and paid for. So, but we hope to continue building and at some point be able to hire a director and a trail coordinator again to operate under that administrative money that we get. Yes.
Okay, and I fully support tourism. This is part of tourism, but I did have a question that I'm sure I will be answered. The person wasn't bonded, correct?
I have not found where that I'm going to have the insurance to protect us from that in the future. I can't, he wasn't paying, he didn't pay state taxes, he didn't pay payroll tax, he didn't pay the unemployment tax, he wasn't paying our insurance and everything. We didn't know that. We were seeing the reports coming through that this was getting paid, but it just wasn't. So I don't know, we didn't have it at the time that this happened. Because I checked with what we had for insurance, it was like, so now we're putting everything back in place, getting back around to where we're supposed to be. And we will have insurance that if somebody does this in the future, that, which I hope never happens. But if it does happen in the future, we'll be insured for it. Yes, Kathy.
What's the budget for the Tri-County Court?
The operation budget is, we get $18,000 for it. That's all we get. I don't have that in front. See,
400,000?
no. See,
So we took 3.
okay, so all the trail work, that's 100% paid for by grants. It's just we have the money to pay for. We have to have the money to pay for the work to be done up front. It's a reimbursable grant. So 100% of the trail work is paid for by grants. It's just so we hired an administrator and he was also the trail coordinator, and he was getting paid, I'm going to say $800 a month to do that job. So times 12 is 9,600. And then the insurance and all of his taxes and all the stuff was paid out of that, additional to that. The program for the accounting. So any administrative expenses would also be in there.
So you invested 203,000, so we had that much in the account.
Well, a little over $100,000 of that money was a grant to gravel from 236 to Range to not Range Road, Barron Road. That was it was over a $200,000 grant. They fronted us a little over 100,000. He took that. So the state literally can ask for us that money back if they want to. They have, the DNR has, I have spoken to them. They says, just remember, we're not banging on your door to get that money back. They're watching everything's going on right now. I'm not saying they won't say in the future, we want that money back. I'm not saying they won't, they'll just write it off. We're thinking they're going to write it off. And we're hoping they do. The DNR has been very cooperative with us. and helping us out and assisting us. So,
So I have two more questions.
sure.
The one thing that I am concerned about with a budget of some $200,000 that was in this account. And you had one person signing the checks. I am the project manager for a small park in Marinville called the Marinville Bureau Park. When I took that over, I went straight to the bank. I said, add 2 signatures to the checking account. And it wasn't your way to do that. I'm surprised that you just did that now after all this money got invested. I'm trying to figure out how you're going to convince us that this won't happen again.
Well, unlike any business, nobody can guarantee it's not going to happen. I'm going to tell you that we are doing every precaution. I honestly can tell you that the precaution of us verifying the statements to the bank is the best procedure out there, because any other procedure we have enacted, 2 signatures can be forged. Checks don't have to be presented, that they can write checks and not even present it. The only way we're gonna know is by looking at the account to say, hey, this check came through and it should have. And that was what was happening. He was doing electronic funds withdrawals, which we weren't seeing, which weren't on our reports. He was writing checks and he was presenting this. This check was written to Olson Brothers Contracting. When the check cleared the bank, it was actually made out to him. He was going into the accounting program and changing things, deleting things. So the accounting program was printing up false statements. That's how this happened. Reason, I don't know why when the commission was formed that it wasn't gone to 2 check signing. But being that we are spread out over 3 counties, so like right now, the signers on the checking account are me in Ashland County, there's one in Bayfield County, which we just added last night. Otherwise, the other signers in Douglas County. So if I need a check signed, I got him and I from Douglas County and Ashland County got to meet. So I think that was part of the reason that it wasn't done, is because of this, how spread out we are over 3 counties. I can't answer that way back then, that why it wasn't. But like I said, we had a treasurer. I don't know if anybody remembers Rusty from Bayfield County was the treasurer, and he would look at the QuickBooks program and verify and testify that these were, or report at the meetings that the bank statements were true and correct, but he wasn't looking at the actual bank account to see that they weren't. So that's what I'm saying is, if you start falsifying documents, what even we did do when I was on the county board here, what we looked at, them documents could have been falsified, and we still wouldn't know until it was too late.
And the last part of my 2-part question is, one thing that I don't like to see in county government or town government, you don't see the vouchers anymore that come with the bills. You have to ask for them. So when you're signing that you're gonna pay this bill, you get one line. That's why I think where it's making it easier for people to take this money, is you need more stricter guidelines for writing out a check and saying, this is where it actually is for.
And I agree, and what I did present at our board meeting last night was the top sheet that showed everyone that was there, but underneath was, they only had to sign the top sheet, but everything underneath was there, the check, the actual check, and the actual invoice it was paying. But again, like I said, I could falsify that document and not include things that are actually being paid. And that's, I'm looking at it from the perspective of how we got cheated, and that he falsified all these documents. And I sat there and looked at it, and I go back to my statement. The only way we're gonna actually catch them, if somebody wants to start falsifying documents and supply them to us, is if we keep verifying to the actual checking account. When we log into that, in that checking account, all of our board members have, if they want the password and login, they have access to it. Some of them have it and are using it, some are not. But they cannot go in there and withdraw money. They can't do anything. It's a view only. So they can go in there. Any one of our board of directors that wants to can go in there and view our account at any point in time. And I think that's the safest and more secure way we can do it. The other ones are just additional measures to help prevent, to make it more difficult for somebody. But the one for sure way we're going to catch you right away with it within between financial statements is if we're watching that account directly itself.
Thank you, Pat.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
Do you guys have to have a audit every year?
No, we do not.
Okay.
We only write about 100 checks a year.
Okay, to, did Ashland County allocate $18,000 for this? Is that what you had said? What?
No. Each year, we get a contribution from Ashland, Bayfield, and Douglas County, $6,000 each.
6,000 each, okay.
Yes.
Laura's got her hand up.
Laura?
Pat, I thank you for being as proactive as you can, knowing those programs and knowing how to change those documents behind the whole facade is like you said, if they keep changing those and you don't have access to that account, that's what's going to happen. And I appreciate how proactive you've been. How much money does the Tri-County Corridor bring into Ashland County?
I don't have tourism figures to tell you what it is. We contract with Ashland County Snowmobile Alliance to maintain the first. Now, I will tell you, some of you may think that we only own, Ashland County only has 1 mile of trail in actual Ashland County. Ashland County Snowmobile Alliance maintains the first 22 miles. We run from Ashland to Forest Road 230 or 241, just past Ino. That is the portion that is assigned to Ashland County. But as amount of tourism that it brings in, I honestly can't give you that figure. I can tell you that when I get the trail graded, my phone doesn't ring. When that trail gets a little bit rough, summer or winter, my phone rings off the hook, my email goes crazy, and Facebook goes crazy. So a lot of people use it. And I'm not only getting calls from people in town, it's out of town. And since we put it out there and got the newspaper articles and we put it on Facebook, only because the reason I put it on Facebook was because the nasty message and language that was used that my 13-year-old stepdaughter had to hear in my house phone, it was enough for me. But the best thing I did was put it on Facebook because I have a guy from Chicago who's bringing his grader up and he's going to donate grading from Ashland to Superior. He's going to grade the entire trail. I got Olson Brothers from when they saw that, went out and dumped some gravel on a trail in the rural area and level it up, donated it free. I've had other people come offer to work on the trail and they're going out and doing stuff on the trail. So I've met it with a tremendous amount of support from this getting out there.
And that means it's a pretty significant part of our tourism is I guess the place I'm trying to get to. With this $10,000 as an emergency piece, are you still going to request $6,000 from us out of this next budget loop? And also with the 10, are you going to pay that back or are you looking for just a one-time payment in?
One-time payment of the 10,000 and yeah, the 6,000 goes towards administrative expenses. That's not covered. I don't want to start using the 10,000 and have it get depleted. The 10,000 that I want to get from each county is going to stay in the account just to use to go forward over what the advance we get on the grants. That's all it's going to be there for.
Okay, thank you.
I looked at the comprehensive plan, and there's a section on transportation. The first thing on objectives is to address the issue of heavy loads on county and town roads with objectives of supporting farms, logging, and other businesses while also protecting the roadways. The last thing on the list is enhance the county's transportation network for motorized, non-motorized recreation use. In other words, things like the trail. Our highway fund does not have 2.4 million that they thought was there. So our highway department right now, we had a finance meeting with them last month. They would like 2.4 million to do the road projects they have scheduled. And most of that's outside of the city limits, which is, where there's lots of bad roads. So when I look at the comp plan, our roads come ahead of the Tri-County Corridor. The Tri-County Corridor is only a mile or two with Ashland comes in down to the Strong Hotel. And it's really Bayfield and Douglas County that have the preponderance of the trail in their counties, and yet Ashland is picking what it sounds like about 1/3 of this. So tourism is mentioned in the comp plan, but it doesn't mention anything specific to it. The city of Ashland and the Ashland Chamber of Commerce gives the road tax. And that's 6.5% on a room. Last night I looked at America Inn, they want $240 for a single room right now. The room tax on that was $15.60. The chamber gets, I believe, 70%, and the city of Ashland gets 30%. So when someone books a room at America Inn right now, the chamber's getting about a $10 bill, and the city of Ashland's getting about a $5 bill. And their charge with that money is to support tourism. That's what they're supposed to do with that money, is to support tourism. So, and I know neither one is going to want to give you the money, but I think you should talk to them. Because the benefactors of the tourism dollars are the chamber, and they have no requirements to use that on serving the public with roads, infrastructure, snow plowing, etc. The city of Ashland uses it for the waterfront development fund, which, benefits tourism, but also the locals here. So I would support a loan of $10,000 for a year or longer if necessary, because that sounds like it would provide the funds in your account to get you through this spot, so that you can raise other money, get donations, and it sounds like that's working with putting it on Facebook, etc. That would solve your immediate problem of being cash in your account. But I can't support something that's a lower priority on our comp plan when we're missing $2.4 million for our road projects. So, and I do have a hard time with, we've only got a couple of miles that we're kicking in this much, and then the benefit of that tourism, the county doesn't see much of. If the road tax is 6.5%, the county tax is 0.5%, that means that the Ashland Chamber and the city have 13 times the tax benefit as the county. And if they're getting 13 times the tax benefit, I think we should have a conversation with them and putting some money in. And I want to ask you, when the chamber does a whistle stop, do they pay rent for that trail? Do they make a donation for trail maintenance?
They pay, they actually go out and do some, they will contract with Ashland Construction to go out and do a little bit of grading and fixing up the trail, but they also do pay the corridor per person that runs on the trail. They have a fee per person.
Yeah, and I think you should talk to them about, upping that, because they're the big benefactors of the tourism year round and the whistle stop. They're making good money. And that's follow the money, and they're the ones with it.
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to speak to the fact that, it comes at a terrible time. There's no two ways about it. And, the whole embezzlement thing is unfortunate. And I think it was kind of a perfect storm because there was some key changes of personnel, both within the Department of Natural Resources as far as the trail coordinator who reviews some of these things and the Tri-County corridor people. But at the end of this all, it's a multi-use trail. So many people think of it as just the snowmobile or ATV, UTV, and it does get quite a bit of use there. But it gets a tremendous amount of use from walkers and bicyclers and you name it. And I think anybody that's in town here much and goes by where the trailhead is out there on Sanborn Ave, you can't hardly go by there anymore without seeing vehicles parked there. Used to be that it was underutilized, and the question was, why are we supporting this? But now, you can see every type of conveyance you want to see on that trail, from horses to dog sleds to motorcycles, you name it. And where I'm going with this is, at the end, this is a tourism thing, and it does bring money into the community. Hard to say how much that is, because snowmobilers are a little more readily identifiable in the winter because we all call them bubbleheads. You see the helmets and what's going on. So, but the other people that are just here hiking the trail or taking their dogs for a run, how do you identify that? But they're going into our businesses, they're staying in our rooms, they're eating in our restaurants, a few that are still open, and they're shopping downtown. And I don't see where we don't support this, to be honest with you. We're talking about a healthy community. This helps. It's unfortunate this came about, but I see us kind of behind the eight ball if we don't do this. So it has my support for those reasons. And thanks for doing what you do on that, Pat. He puts a lot of effort into this. And, you know, and the rest of the snowmobile trails in the county as well that you know. So I guess with that, I support this and don't see where we can't, if we're serious about taking care of businesses in our county.
Any more discussion?
I will let you know, yes, like Matt said, I have never gone on that trail without seeing numerous joggers, walkers, bikers on the trail. And I live from Ashland here. I see less, I see, I see more of them than I see the motorized traffic. But if you've ever, you know, we fuel up for work at Cenex on Sanborn Avenue, and if you judge it by a day of sitting there and seeing how many ATVs, UTVs, and dirt bikes that are fueling up there, there's a lot that are also contributing to the tax base there. But the people that are walking, jogging, and riding bikes on it are locals. Ashland County residents that are participating. In the wintertime, fat tire bikers are on it because when our groomer goes by, they say that all of a sudden they come back and there's bike tracks on it because they love getting out. Everybody loves getting on there. They go by people walking on the trail in the wintertime. As soon as it's groomed, they move over to the groomed hard packed side, and that is what they like to do. It's multi-use trail. It's used for any means you can think of.
Philomena has her hand up.
Philomena? Oh,
Hi, everyone. I hope my sound quality is okay. I'm driving back from Chicago this morning. Pat, thank you so much for your really helpful commentary and explanation of all these issues. I had a lot of questions about, just about the financial stability and the checks and balances within the organization, and you've addressed a lot of them. I'm wondering. I just have a proposal for consideration by the board. I'm wondering if we could organize this donation, this $10,000 amount that's required to maintain the cash flow of the organization right now as a loan, in order to explore the possibility of using either ARPA or, the Senate it seems like the Senate has passed an infrastructure bill, and it's quite possible that there could be federal funds to offset this payment to the to the corridor. I only mention the ARPA funds because one of the allowable spending options for those funds is initiatives that support public health, and I think we could make an argument that that this trail is facilitates wellness within our community because of all the recreational opportunities that we have. Certainly the ARPA funds, there's a lot of Treasury guidance that needs to be explored, but perhaps this is a possibility. And certainly it's likely that this project and the maintenance and the use of funds would be considered an infrastructure project. But I don't, again, with that infrastructure project and with the passage of that bill, sometimes you have to, there's different requirements related to the regulations itself. And if we were just to provide the money right now, it might not qualify. And so that's why I'm suggesting we package it as a loan, and perhaps it would have to be paid back and then paid again in order to qualify for that Treasury, for that infrastructure payment. So that's just, that would just be my thought right now. I know that, I am really concerned about the, the county's overall finances, and I'm really reluctant to make any outright expenditures until we go through the budgetary process. So that's all I have to say. Rich.
Would a one-year loan of $10,000 get you through the situation? Because you said the money is just gonna sit to your account. Would that meet the requirements to get you through what you're dealing with?
Then I'd have to come back next year because every year, all the money's passed through. We contract, we use other, the Ashland County, Bayfield County and Douglas County to do all the work. The money comes into us, we pay it out to them, we get reimbursed on the grant. So then the next year, when we need to spend the money again, we need the money to spend.
So supervisor's back point would be that with that ARPA money, and then this infrastructure bill, there may be an opportunity to apply for money there to get that 10,000 or more to replace the 10,000 from the county. So if we did this as a loan and you apply for those fundings, or you raise money in other ways, you would then, if we get you through the hump you're in, and at the same time give you opportunities to look for other sources of funding to pay back that loan. So we're short 2.4 million on the highway fund. And so on the street of downtown, I'm sure they can all point to roads that need work. And we know with highways that if the longer you leave them on maintenance, the trail, the more expensive they get. So the loan seems like middle ground to work through this. So with that for a year, work, get you through this hump.
If I got it right now, it would get me out on the trail doing some work right now because right now, currently with the bills I paid last night, I haven't sent the bills that were approved to pay last night, I'm just over $6,000 short to pay them. So
what I'd like to do is I would like to offer an amendment that we make the $10,000 loan immediately to the Tri-County corridor. I'll offer that as an amendment.
But then I would, like I said, when I paid it back, I would have to come and ask for it, yes.
Yeah, so we have a motion by Supervisor Mitchell, a second by Supervisor Shooty, if they would accept that as a
No,
friendly.
I wasn't doing anything. I was just listening.
Okay, no, you seconded the main motion, right?
No, Laura Negro did. Laura Negro.
Okay, so I just want to offer amendment, we to make a one-year loan immediately, and then revisit this in a year after you have more opportunity to look for funding from several sources.
Laura,
What if we did this as a 3-year loan, revisit it in a year, looking at these different terms or at different possibilities for it, and then that would give a little bit more leeway. So even if it could be paid back a little at a time, or we could see how those two bills come out.
I would accept 3 years, revisit it annually.
Yeah, but I need whoever made the motion first, because I seconded it, so.
Supervisor.
George, what do you think, George?
What's that?
What do you think?
What do I have?
Are you,
I motion that we put it on the floor.
well, making a motion to put on the floor, we would need you to have agree to the friendly amendment.
1393.
Yeah, the friendly amendment to the resolution to state it'd be instead of a gift, it'd be a 3-year loan. That's what Laura's.
With revisitation in a year, so that way we can see how everything's going and what happened with ARPA funding, or I'm wondering if some of this might fall into some of that, unless it only counts as the tax, but also the infrastructure bill. So if we gave a 3-year period with revisitation in a year.
Will that work for you, Ben? I'd rather not.
Yeah. The only thing I say, like I said, in October, I get my half up front of the grant monies for the year. So they get the grant starts in July. In August, they approve it. October, they pay us the first half. In October, I'm sitting good with money because I've got all this half. But every spring after I pay I got to pay all the bills for snowmobiling by June 30th, and the checks have to clear before I can send them in to get reimbursed, which they're sent in not right now, waiting for reimbursement. That drains all the money so that I can't, in the spring, I don't have money to do grading, to get the trail in condition for the tourism. So every spring I'm short of money.
How about this? We've been at this for an hour. How about we move it from the ARPA funds? I like the rationale of Supervisor Quebec calling it a part of a public health mitigation for outdoor spacing. We could take it from the $1.5 million that's sitting in the ARPA fund instead of the contingency fund. Would you be okay with that, George, instead of contingency
Well, I got
fund?
this on the floor. Did I get a second?
You did. Negro seconded.
I'm gonna leave it the way it is.
Okay, I was just saying we could take it from, instead of contingency fund, just change the resolution to read ARPA funds.
That's what it says.
It's-
Yeah, that's a good way to take it.
All right, so you're fine with ARPA funds. Laura, are you fine with taking out of ARPA funds?
It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other for me. I'd rather see it as a 3-year and then revisiting it. We can always forgive the loan, but if there is a possibility of some kind of federal funding to help supplant that, I'd rather see that as a possibility.
Point of order. So I
Okay.
I offered an amendment that we do this as a 3-year loan revisited annually. I'm willing to add to that the loan come out of ARPA funds. So I offered that amendment, and so the point of order is we need to determine if there's a second or not. Given that we don't have support for a friendly amendment, we still need to find out if there's a second on this, and if there is, then vote on this amendment. Is there a second?
Well, I believe.
We can't have a motion and a motion, point of order.
Well, this is an amendment to the main motion, and if the person making the motion and the person seconding do not accept it as a friendly amendment, then you still need to see if there's a second to the amendment. And if there's not a second to the amendment, then offer an amendment dies. But if there is a second, then we need to vote on it.
Yeah, to me, it seems like what we're arguing about now is where the money's gonna come from. And if we look at this resolution that's before us, it doesn't really talk about where it's gonna come from until after the now therefore be it resolved. And then it talks about which is reflected in the following accounts. We just would simply change this resolution to get rid of the where it comes from. And let's let finance figure that out, whether it's some sort of loan or whether it's, you know, an outright gift, and get beyond this. That would be my recommendation, is that this resolution is changed to eliminate the source of the amounts and just approve the fact that we're gonna, you know, give them $10,000 somehow or another, and let finance, which is their role, is to figure out where the money comes from, make that determination. So
Is that-
I make a motion that the original resolution be amended to just simply strike where the money is coming from. And it just simply says, you know, they're gonna be given $10,000. Let finance sort it out.
I would actually take that, I would take it as a friendly, so.
Okay, you guys just can't take a motion and just start adding and subtracting from it.
All right.
You need to deal with the motion that George made, which is basically to approve this resolution 08/2021-1393. And if that doesn't pass, then come up with another motion. That's probably the better way to do it, instead of having ad infinitum motions on that.
You're not correct on that. Robert's Rules of Order allows for an amendment, actually allows for a couple of amendments to the original resolution. It can be done. And Mr. Kinney is also correct as far as what happens is he can make a motion to amend, just as I did. And if there's a second, then you vote on that amendment, and then you go on to the resolution if amended.
So Pat had the first amendment to the motion and you want to look for a second for that.
What I would like the chair to do is, given that it is not accepted as a friendly amendment, I would like the chair to call, after I state this, for a second. And if there's a second, then we vote on it. And if there's not a second, it dies. But my amendment was a 3-year loan revisited annually. And they would get the money immediately. So 3-year loan visited immediately.
So I asked if there's a second for that. Ask if there's a second for
They
that.
need in their accounts so they can pay their bills to get their grants. and give them opportunity to apply for other sources of funding such as infrastructure. So that was my offer for amendment, so I would ask the chair to ask it for the second to that.
Is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second that. Okay, or Gary, go ahead, Gary.
Okay, seconded by Laura.
Before we vote on anything, is there any, can I make just an idea or discussion? Yeah.
Yes.
With Pat Dose, is there any signage on the corridor with, information about, how much it costs to, keep up the trails every year and everything? And if we could just, put either a charge or a free will donation box. I'm thinking a lot of people that use that trail, even walking, would, do this. Even if it was a minute amount, it would add up if everybody even contributed $1 that used that trail, and have somebody check it daily. And, have some nice mapping on the signage and, show how far that it goes and everything for people that are walking. That's just an idea. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table.
Just a clarification, because Pat mentioned something earlier that I want to clarify for the board. Did you mention there are currently board members sitting here that are on your committee? Okay, I'm going to suggest something because this is how it should be done. Any board member who sits on that committee should abstain from voting. Because it's a conflict to vote for something you're on a committee for. So I'm just making that suggestion. I'm not telling you you have to, but in normal procedures, if you're affected by the vote and sitting on a committee, you should abstain.
They're appointed to the committee by this county board and they would not be affected by it.
They make a decision for your committee.
Finance.
You have to have a point of order or point of clarification. You have to actually benefit financially from it in order to have to sustain, take yourself out of the voting process. Isn't that correct? Because really, there's a lot of you guys that are on different committees or not committees that are, like Kathy and Doreen are both on do things with the fair, correct? I mean, you'd have to abstain from that.
If the highway committee gets money, does the board members there have to abstain?
Yeah,
Giving them-
Well,
it's,
we're on a tedious teeter-totter, everybody. I'll get Laura. You're correct, Laura. But there are certain issues where you benefit financially, you should abstain. So I'll withdraw my information. Thanks, Laura.
no problem.
Can we get this resolved?
Maybe.
Pat, really opened up a can of worms here.
If there's no more discussion, we need to vote on it. Yeah, let's vote.
We have a motion and a second.
Before we vote, can we clarify what this amendment is? It's,
Thank
it's
you,
obviously a loan, but is it for a 3-year loan and is it $10,000 each of the 3 years?
It's
What, and now I'm talking about a 3-year payback, to be clear as far as what this amendment will change is to.
$10,000 immediately. And I'm not sure on the legal aspect of this. Do we need to charge them any interest if we make the loan? If not, an interest-free loan for $10,000, payable immediately, reviewed annually. And the goal is then to give them time to do other fundraising, applying for grants, so that they have the money to build back up that account.
Regarding a loan from the county, that's an excellent question. We're normally not in the business of financing organizations with a loan. In the past, you've seen from our revolving loan fund, that has a statutory interest rate on it. I we'd have to look into that to figure out what that means.
So on the interest end, if we have to charge interest, then we'll have to charge interest, but in that loan, when you write up the agreement, part of the review could be that the board could forgive the interest then.
I think that we should
I will
cut
look
out
into it.
all the BS here and just give them the $10,000 with hope we're gonna get the money back from ARPA and pass this damn thing.
Well, we have a motion, we're gonna vote on.
I know, we gotta vote that up or down first.
Yeah, we're gonna vote on the loan first.
Okay, those in favor of giving Tri-County Quarter $10,000 in the form of a loan?
I think we need to do a roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
What?
Roll call.
I'll vote.
So confusing. I think we
Yeah, it
need to
is.
do a roll call vote.
Roll call.
Okay, so this is in regards to Pat's amendment of a 3-year loan, pay immediately and revisit annually. Correct? Okay,
Thank you.
Campbell,
Yes.
Kinney,
Yes.
Ortman,
Yes.
Brannick,
yes,
Hufall.
No.
Stendor,
No.
Jennings. Jennings here.
He's here, but he's muted. There he goes.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. Berlin,
Yes.
Corpola,
Yes.
Mecca,
No.
VTech,
Yes.
Huber,
Yes.
Henneman,
Yes.
Weiner,
No.
Judy. No. Murday,
Yes.
Negro,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
No.
Quebec. Willamette, Quebec.
Yes. Yes. That was just one. Yes. Yes.
Metzinger,
No.
seven no, 13 yes.
Motion carries. So you're gonna get your $10,000 and
You guys, so that's that is amendment. You gotta vote on the actual one now. That's amended.
okay, we have to vote now on the resolution.
So this is on the resolution as amended, correct?
As amended.
Kinney,
Yes.
Ortman,
Yes.
Brannick,
yes,
Hufall,
Yes.
Stendor,
Yes.
Jennings,
Yes.
Berlin,
Yes.
Corpola,
Yes.
Mecca,
Yes.
VTech,
Yes.
Huber,
Yes.
Henneman,
Yes.
Weiner,
Yes.
Judy,
Yes.
Murday,
Yes.
Negro,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Quebec,
Yes.
Metzinger,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
20 yes.
Thank you.
I'll be in touch.
Motion carries. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you very much for your time.
Hey, Pat, thank you for what you do. Trying to do my best. You were terrifying to the whole success. Now they're gonna waste it on some.
Okay, we're gonna move on to D3, approval of ARPA funds for health and human services.
This came back from the last meeting where we didn't have action listed. We had discussion, now it's listed as an action. This basically is the utilization of ARPA funds to basically reimburse the general fund for mandated out-of-home behavioral health treatment programs, which is allowed under the Treasury guidelines.
Motion approved.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Campbell.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Frantic.
Seconded by Liz Frantic. Do we need a roll call on this?
Unless somebody requests one, I think there's probably consensus on it.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the ARPA funds for health and human services, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we need a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to go into closed session. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Roll call. Closed session requires a roll call.
Yeah. Kinney,
Yes.
Ortman,
Yes.
Brannick,
Yes.
Hufall,
Yes.
Stendor,
Yes.
Jennings,
Yes.
Berlin,
Yes.
Corpola,
Yes.
Minka,
Yes.
Vitek,
Yes.
Huber,
Yes.
Henneman,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Judy. Yes. Burdick,
Yes.
Negro,
Yes.
McKenzie,
For the purpose of discussing employment of the new county administrator, yes.
Quebec.
We don't need roll call.
Yeah.
Is this, yeah, sorry, is this public information after this or what?
I believe it is, yes.
Public information.
Yes, yeah.
So you can be enlightened after you vote.
What's that?
You can be enlightened after you vote.
Oh, okay, sounds good.
It's usually how it goes.
We don't need roll call on closed session.
Yeah, yeah. We probably should still take just a verbal vote for coming into open session.
Okay, all that agree to go back in the open session, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
All right.
We're in open session.
Yep. So we want to seek a motion for the contracts. To approve, seek a motion to approve the contract.
Employment agreement before the.
Yeah.
Plans.
Make a motion that we approve the contract that the hire Daniel Grady as the next Ashland County administrator.
I'll second it.
All right, there's a motion on the table by Senator Campbell and a second by Catherine Chu to approve the appointment of Dan Grady as Ashland County Administrator. Just for the record, you want to
Do we need a roll call?
call what
It
was
should be
this?
roll call.
Roll call.
Roll call. Roll call.
This is to approve the appointment of the
Yes.
administrator. correct?
Well, approve the contract.
Just the contract. Contract.
Contract first, then appointment.
Wortman,
Yes.
Brannick,
Yes.
Hufall,
Yes.
Stendor,
Yes.
Jennings. Jennings,
I believe he left the meeting.
Berlin,
Yes.
Corpola,
Yes.
Minka,
Yes.
Vitek,
Yes.
Huber,
Yes.
Henneman,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Judy. Yes. Burdick,
Yes.
Negro,
No.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Quebec,
Yes.
Metzinger,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Kinney,
Yes.
19 yes, 1 no. I'm sorry. 18 yes, 1 no.
Okay, now we need a motion to appoint Dan Grady as the county administrator.
I'll make a motion that we appoint or elect Dan Grady as our new administrator.
Motion made by Kathy Schutte,
I'll second it.
seconded by John Wiener. Okay, let's do a roll call.
Discussion,
Any discussion here?
I guess there was one no vote on the contract. I'm just curious if that person would be interested in explaining why.
I would, because I don't believe that this is the right person for the county administrator job, so I'm voting no against both things.
Yes.
During when the hiring firm did this, they asked that it was very crucially important that the whole county board get behind whoever we choose and throw support to them. It doesn't look right if some people are voting no.
Point of order. That is not, that's not appropriate. You can't, their reasons are not questionable. If after the debate, a supervisor votes as they choose, that's just how it works. Thank you.
Next time, hit the floor. Go ahead, finish up.
Well, he just said that, just have some of them vote no and some vote yes. It sets it off on the wrong foot. And I understand Laura's thing that he doesn't have a lot of experience with county government. He had an 8-year accounting degree that he had worked in. He didn't come from grade school to do this. He had a very good resume.
Oh, it was 19 to 1. That's not accurate. Okay, want to do a roll call?
This is a roll call for the appointment of Dan Grady as county administrator.
That's right.
Thank you. Brandon,
Yes.
Hufall,
Yes.
Stendor,
Yes.
Jennings is absent, Berlin,
Yes.
Corpola,
Yes.
Mika,
Yes.
Vitek,
Yeah.
Huber,
Yes.
Henneman,
Yes.
Wiener, Shooty,
Yes.
Burdick, Negro,
No,
Betsy,
I'll say no.
over again. Come back.
Yeah, yeah,
Gabriel,
yeah, you're welcome.
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Kinney,
Yes.
Ortman,
No.
so 16 yes, 3 no, 2 absent.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving right along. County administrator updates.
Okay, census information, we're still waiting on. We're looking at a redistricting committee meeting before the information comes in. We should look at broad districts and what ifs. We're trying to change one district and how it'll affect the other 20 districts. I don't expect much change in the overall population. We may actually have a slight decrease in population in the southern part of the county. Regardless, our mandate is to set district lines so that all districts have the same or very close population for each district, regardless of how many square miles or square blocks the number of people per district are. This creates large districts where less people live, but there's nothing you can do about that. I'm thinking about having a redistricting meeting on the 24th of August at 9 o'clock to go over the board directive of staying in 21 districts and prepare staff to create 21 even district populations. And so this issue has come up when we talk about the number 20 district has a lot of square miles. This district will always have a lot of square miles because there's only a few hundred people living in here. It's going to be this big regardless. The question is, if you change this district and you cross lateral lines, I did ask Brittany to start drawing lines coming across. What would it look like to go straight across there, straight across there, straight across there, straight across there? The problem is you'll have a district like here, you might have 3 county supervisors living in one district that have to compete against each other and nobody in another district. You know, so those are kind of the complications you have when you make a big change like that. But what we want to be able to do is get this committee together to give staff direction to say, do we want to do some radical changes, even though some of these districts are still going to be very large, and it will disrupt, you may not be in a district by yourself anymore. That will be a committee decision, and then that will eventually come back to the county board. We'll have a public hearing. You will approve the proposed districts. It will go to the municipalities, the cities and towns. They basically will give comment. It will come back to you as a county board, and we need to approve it by November something in order for people to take out papers on December 1st for their respective districts. So that's kind of the process we'll get in, and we'll set that meeting up and notice it for August 24th. Other upcoming meetings, we're gonna have a land conservation meeting on the 10th at 9 o'clock. Finance committee meeting on the 17th at 9 o'clock. We're gonna be going through, there'll be a long meeting, so I'll pack a lunch. M3 health insurance report, which will basically be going over our underfunded plan. And Heather and I had a meeting with them for an hour last week concerning, you know, what kind of direction we want to give, what kind of direction they can give the finance committee to say, how can you remedy your underfunded plan? We're also going to have the fiscal consultants report. There's 30 recommendations coming from them concerning how to improve operations and within the fiscal aspect of the organization. And they're going to be, we have those recommendations. I've not put them out yet because I want them to prioritize them first. This will take between 12 and 18 months to do, and it will be overwhelming or scary for people to see you got to do 30 things all at once. So we're trying to group them into small groups of 4 or 5 recommendations at a time, and then we'll put that in the packet for the committee, and also they'll go over their recommendations. In addition, as was alluded to, we don't have the, you know, in my estimation, we don't have the staff time or capacities to make these 30 implementations into the county, in which case we'll be looking at extend, you know, basically developing a contract for these consultants till the end of this year from ARPA money, and then also for the following year from ARPA money. And that, I think, would be perfectly allowable under the Treasury Department, in my opinion, and my fellow county administrators. Hiring a finance director with ARPA money would not be allowed. That would be too much of a stretch for consider the use of those funds. So we'll be considering those two. I've asked those to be there. In addition, just like the last meeting, we had the Sheriff's Department kind of explain their overall budget process. The time before that, we had the Road Department do it. We're going to have Health and Human Services explain their budget process. How do they come about? What are their uses and resources available to them? And then I'm hoping to have the first crack at a combined budget. It will not be balanced most likely, but the department heads are giving me their budgets back by the 12th of August. And I'm going to try to put that together by the, for the 17th. So that will be that meeting. The executive meeting on the 19th. I have a few employee handbook changes I would like the committee to consider. One of which would be switching from vacation and personal time and sick time and moving to a combined PTO system. And so it's a little bit of a culture shift. Whether or not you agree with that will be up to you, but I think it's a good way to implement what we're doing, because in my vision, last year I switched the payroll to be delayed a week. You were paying people on Thursday for work that was done on Friday. Now, basically, you pay people the next Thursday for a week that was done previously. I set that up. The next step is to switch to PTO. After that, we're going to get that onto people's paychecks. So every 2 weeks, you're going to see what your balance is. So there'll be more information and less hand notes and Excel spreadsheets all over the place. And then the fourth step will be to have employees start entering their time into the payroll system itself. Instead of right now, they're doing, hand time sheets and on Excel spreadsheets, and they're turning them in, and then people have to hand enter that. That would be the next step. Somebody would basically put it directly into the software system. They would hit submit. It would go to their supervisor would review it. They would hit submit. That's it. There's no more hand entry. It's in the system to supervise. The onus is on the supervisors to approve these timesheets as they do now on a paper copy, but we're not making the clerk's office hand enter and all this information. That's my vision for you for that.
What day did you say that meeting was?
19th, August 19th, 9 o'clock, executive meeting.
August 19th.
August 19th, and then public property and law enforcement will be on the 30th. And we're going to be reviewing policy developed by the sheriff on marijuana possession, and then also review police dog use resolution. That was basically put in. My last day will be on the 10th. I'll have 4 days overlap with Dan. I'll be attending the WCA conference, however. I will be paying my own registration and hotel and travel, as I want Dan to attend the conference. I think it's important for him. I did register for him. He's staying at the same hotel as Laura, Dick, and Charlie are. I'm actually a moderator for one of the sessions on redistricting. Opiate settlement, Purdue Pharma's in bankruptcy. And they have a distribution settlement with 48 states. Our share is going to come from the Attorney General in a 70-30 split, which you agreed to a few years ago. The distributor and manufacturer settlement will have between 6 and 18-year payout based on the industry. There might be an option to sell our interest and receive the money up front versus in 18 years. The state AGs are still signing up. If there's not enough states which sign up for this deal, the deal's off, and each state is for itself and would rule the day. And there's a website here, National Opiate Settlement. I can't click it from here, but that basically has all that information on it, nationalopiatesettlement.com. Audio-visual equipment for the boardroom is coming in. We're having a kickoff meeting this week to set the schedule for installation. I'm working on a bill. This came from our fiscal advisors also. I'm working on a bill to address the sandboard property tax issue, which is draining the county of cash. I'm basically getting DOR, DOA, legislators, WCA involved in putting together language to address this issue. I'm looking at the language I have proposed is that land which is delinquent on taxes and takeable, but the county is precluded from by a court order, would be removed from the tax rolls during the court order process. So in this case, we have this issue with these 800 some odd properties haven't paid taxes since 2015. And we've dropped in $1 million on this issue because we make the settlement payments. We've sent out $1 million in cash that it's hard for us to do. And what I'm trying to do while this case is continuing to go through the court system, and it's sitting down in the Chicago appeals court, and eventually most likely will be appealed to the United States Supreme Court. While this appeal process is going on, the courts have basically enjoined us or stopped us from taking possession of these properties. We still have to make the settlement payments per state law. There's nothing we can do. We can't change that. What I'm going to try to do is put in a 1-sentence amendment to the state law that would remove these properties from a court order if there's from the property tax rolls, if there's a court order that precludes us from taking the properties. And that would stop the settlements. The problem, and granted, the problem's going to roll, you know, if it's removed from the tax rolls, our maximum tax levy of $6.8 million, we would collect all of that. Right now, you're not collecting maybe $100,000 a year off that because they don't pay it. That would be distributed over the rest of the taxpayers. The same thing with the other 4 townships, school district and WITC, they would still be able to collect their maximum tax levy. They would just distribute it over a lower number of properties. It's a complicated issue, but.
So the language you use would, if the courts ruled in favor of the counties, preclude you from going back and collecting taxes that weren't collected during that period.
So I can't predict where the courts are going to go. And so I'm just looking to stop the bleeding right now. You may have a problem later on, or you may have a bonus later on.
I guess my suggestion would be that you use language that you get, but it also, if possible, include language that says the county retains the right to collect back taxes if the court rules in favor of the county. Whether we actually, you know, receive the money or not, we don't want to give up that right just because we're joyful about collecting.
Well, I don't know if we would want to do that. So picture we have a church that somebody's living in here in town. It used to be tax exempt as a church. Somebody bought it, it became taxable, goes on the tax rolls. Then it becomes untaxable because it goes back to a church again. We're not looking to make back settlement payments. So let's say we get an exempt from taxes for 22. And then the court eventually says that it is taxable. Well, during the tax year of 2022, it wasn't taxable. So therefore, we don't have to go back and make settlement payments during that period.
What you're proposing doesn't make any sense. What I would propose is that you don't have to settle in full with certain types of property, like land that's there's legal action pending. Then you won't, you know, you don't have to settle in full, so then we don't pay the school, we don't pay the vocational school, we don't pay the district, you know, that's right for those properties. If we don't settle in full, the county cannot collect the interest. The interest goes to that district. So like if we didn't settle in full with the school, then the school, if they paid their taxes, they would get the interest. So that's why we're settling in full with all the districts, so that we can keep the interest, okay? So what I would suggest is that if there's any litigation, we don't have to settle on those properties in full. They still would be taxed, but we don't have to settle on the district. And then if it comes to the point that they are non-taxable, if the courts rule that, then we don't have to pay anybody. Nobody has to pay us back, and we don't have to worry about collecting taxes or not collecting taxes. Because if you exempt somebody, it's supposedly what's on record as of January 1st of each particular year. So that's how the assessment is made. So, you know, I would say, and the state of Wisconsin has ruled that it's taxable, and the different people have appealed it. So, you know, I think that would make a lot more sense, is don't if you'd be given the right not to settle in full.
Well, I'm only here 25 more days, and I obviously am not going to see this at all. What I did was put together WCA, the Town Association, you know, the governor's office, the Department of Revenue, and I'm putting them together. They're going to be working on this and hopefully they'll come up with a solution. They are well aware of it. WCA is watching this issue. There are 12 counties, I think, that are seeded land, that have seeded lands within them. So we're not the only people that this would affect. So I'm just putting the ball in motion and we'll see where WCA goes with it.
I was gonna say that when you were reading your suggested wording, it occurred to me that if that went through as you worded it, it would result in an increase in taxes for the rest of us.
Well, that would be the case because you basically, the problem is we get $6.7 million maximum levy. Our choice is to basically levy that amount. And if there's less landowners, then the rest, everybody else has to pay that amount. But that's the money that we're short. We're trying to, and so what I'm trying to say is we need the money. And so you exempt those properties and we basically still collect the $6.7. We are basically going broke.
Right. Well, my suggestion would take care of that issue.
No, but you're not going to collect your full county allotment.
Right.
But you're not gonna pay it to those other entities either.
Right. But if the court rules in our favor, then the money would be there. And if you exempt them, then the money would never be there.
Yeah. So there'll be a lot smarter people than me working on this. I just am the guy who's pushed the ball down the hill and hopefully it's going to go there. So, and that's it for my administrative updates. And by the way, this is my last county board meeting. So I appreciate you working with me for the last couple of years. I've really enjoyed it. Enjoyed working to know all of you and know the wonderful staff, the hardworking, dedicated staff that we have up here at Ashland. So I'll certainly miss all of you and miss my fellow employees. So thank you for putting up with me for a couple of years. So
Thank you, Clark. I wish you well.
Question there, Richard? Over there.
Yes.
One thing that I think will help Clark and Dan when they get on board, when, like for today, George Micka made a motion, it got seconded. That motion should have been voted up or down. Then Matt makes a motion, then Matt McKinsey makes a motion. Either Dick or Dan or Clark or whoever needs to, before we vote on it, say, a yes vote means we're doing this, and then it needs to be more clear. This was crazy. I couldn't keep it straight. So if you guys can remember, somebody's got to explain this, what the no and yes vote means. When you got three votes on the floor, we can discuss. That would help.
If they did it for confusion, they were successful. Okay, last thing on the agenda is your any county supervisor reports, your committees.
Laura's got her hand up.
All right.
I know we had a PPLE meeting. We went through some data points that we want to pull to help out the coordinated committee with the courts and et cetera. And part of that, that kind of stemmed out of, I'm on the City of Ashland Policing Task Force. And what we're gonna do is hold some public forums and get some information from the public on their ideas of how everything works, what direction we should go and everything. So our first meeting will be Wednesday, August 11th at 6:30. That one is a virtual meeting. We have 3 more meetings scheduled. Wednesday, August 25th, that'll be at the band shell. Thursday, September 9th, that one will be at Vaughn Library. The one at the band show will be 6:30. Vaughn Library will be 10:30 in the morning. And then Thursday, September 23rd, will be at the Bredding Center at 6:30. I'll send you guys out a poster for this. But if you have any questions or you guys want to come and see some public input and how maybe we should hold some more listening sessions when we have bigger issues, I invite you and I invite anybody to in your districts to get the information out, and because it's for everyone, how they've interacted with, and this is the city policing. So if there ends up being any other points to take out of that, I'll bring that back to PPLE for Mick and the gang. So thank you.
Any more reports? Yeah.
Seems like everybody else is getting raised, when do we get raised?
John asked if other people get a raise, when does a county board member get a raise?
Anybody else, any more reports? Turn in your vouchers before you leave. Next thing on the agenda is motion to adjourn. By Mike Berlin, motion to adjourn, seconded by Richard Corporal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody?
Aye.